Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Yes, good afternoon. As Santi mentioned, I am interior designer and also a builder, carpenter, who knows what. And I've been doing this since I was 18. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's well over 50 years. Okay? No? No. A little bit under. A little bit under. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. I've got a short presentation on what I have done recently as an interior designer. Most of these slides you're going to see is presentations, drawings, or presentation renderings. I enjoy a lot actually photo rendering for architecture and interior design, and I spend a lot of time on this, and it's not only my work, it's also my hobby. So let's start with this. That's the first slide there. You can see this is a model of the small building, and it has been built with ArchiCAD and then rendered with Atlantis. The next one there, that's interior space of the house I have redesigned and renovated, and it's all done with the ArchiCAD and also with a little bit Photoshop and Illustrator. This is actually, it's not a photograph, it's the ArchiCAD photo rendering. So it is basically just a photo rendering. So you can see this is a daytime view, and you can see the same rendering as a nighttime view. The next one is actually the real project after it was built. So when you look at the one before and one that's actually built, the difference is pretty much in furnishing only. That's the same view with a little different perspective. Again, it's a daytime view and the nighttime view. I enjoy doing the nighttime perspective renderings because you can achieve so much more with the light. And again, this is the same space after it was built. This image is the same house. This is another project I worked on around Balkan Hills. And you can see the client presentation. That was actually the design presentation. And rendering was done with Atlantis. That's the same project. This is, I have to admit, that was my free time killing, spending, you know, and I didn't have much to do, so I thought, oh, I'll do this. And this is actually Atlantis rendering and ArchiCAD building. That was interesting. I got a contract from a guy who is selling furniture, and he was doing a catalog for his new furniture, but he didn't have any material product yet in Australia, and he had to do a catalog. So he asked me if I can actually model this and then photo render. So what you see there, it's actually the table was built using ArchiCAD, and then the rendering was done with CineRender. That's another project. I was able to do for this, to take client's photographs of her original artwork and then include this original artwork in the rendering. And when she looked at this, she was very impressed. She could recognize her own artwork, and that was pretty good. She liked that. That's another one. That was Atlantis render. That's one of the early work. And this one I did for the Boral competition. I didn't win competition, but I gave it a go. I tried. The design I called tumbling blocks. The reason for tumbling blocks was the site was on a pretty steep slope, and I thought if I put a block on the top of the hill and push it, it will tumble down, and that's what it looked like. You can see this tumbling down little boxes, and okay. That was something I did 10 years ago. I did few courses at National Art School, which I enjoyed a lot, and this one there was from experimental drawings. Yeah, so that was quite interesting. That's one of the mood boards I did for a client. And this, I have to say, not many of you probably knows that I have been studying here. I have been here, I started 2006, I believe, and at that time, Joanna was my teacher, and I did this project for Joanna. So this, I did it with Joanna. So this is actually my work as a student here.
Did you pass?
I think I did, Joanna, did I? Okay, so...
I wish you hadn't just taken up to the Northern Territory and built.
Yes, yes, okay. So let me now go to the second part of my presentation, and I'm going to take you now to Europe for a short time, probably half an hour, maybe 35 minutes. I have been there for 6 weeks, and what I went there for was to discover things that I was expecting in a way, but didn't think if they exist. So all I can say is I think that all of us, we deserve a little bit of TLC, don't we? Okay, so my presentation is on TLC. Okay, TLC stands for tender loving care. Okay, now forget that. It's not about tender loving care. My presentation is about texture, line, and color. Okay, so in few slides, I'm going to take you through some of the countries that I went to, and I'll be looking at these countries through texture, line, and color. So I'm not going to bore you with the typical castles and stuff like this, what tourists do. We'll look at those 3 elements, and we'll start with Poland. I'm originally from Poland, and it was a little bit emotional for me to go there. What I want to talk about there is colors. As you can see, there's flowers there. This is at the front of the cemetery. People in Poland buy flowers and they leave flowers on the graves. It's a big tradition, so you can see flowers everywhere there. Also, Poland is probably the only place where you can buy flowers 24 hours a day. Okay? They close McDonald's for the night, they close Subways, they close all this, but you can buy flowers, and you can see how beautiful these flowers were. Also, you could see the beautiful colors of the national Polish costumes and the chocolates. Chocolates are marvelous there. Believe me, they are just awesome. There was a lot of texture, and that's one of my photographs. I took a lot of photographs there. I took about 4,000 photographs. and it took me a few days to sort them out and just leave those which I think are interesting. Look at this texture there and the color. Isn't this amazing? Even looking at the eggs, we think eggs are white, but they're not exactly, are they? There's so much color in there. There's a little bit of a symmetry again and the green stuff. I'll go through this quickly because I want to get to the Architecture Biennale. So there is another one, a lot of color in there. I like this photograph. I don't know, I went for a walk in Krakow and I like the shadow of the bicycle on the textured wall. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting. And there's a little bit more of texture and color there. Look at the texture on the castle wall. That's pretty awesome. Okay, that's the same castle with the color. The color is just amazing. And we came across this little bar, and I want to stop here for a little longer and then say a little bit more. That bar was kind of a forgotten place, and we walked in and the whole place was in the original stage Art Nouveau, and it was just awesome. And you could see the beautiful lines of Art Nouveau in there, and that started, and then we discovered a Polish artist. And I want to tell you a little bit of a couple of artists from Poland, from the other country, and one more. And this fella, he was part of the Polish Art Nouveau. He died when he was 37. The reason was he spent some time in France, in Paris, and he enjoyed a French ladies' company there a lot, and he came home with the sickness. Okay, so he lived only 37 years. He was actually a playwright, painter, poet, also interior designer and French designer. His paintings or art looks pretty much like this. He had 6 children, and he used to draw his children. He was allergic to zinc in the white paint, and therefore he couldn't paint. The only media he was able to use was pastels. And in these drawings you can see all his children, and this is his wife actually with the children. That's another one. Okay, come on. Go. Okay, he also did a LED light. Jump there. It was done in a church that he renovated, and he designed and the stained light glass windows for this. He also did the mural paintings in the church. He did all himself. Okay, from Poland we went to Czech Republic. In Czech Republic we went to Prague, and you can see there, this tower. It was actually built in 1980. It's a TV tower. It was very controversial in Prague at the time because it stood over the landscape of Prague, and it was quite disturbing. In 2006, a Czech artist, his name was David Czerny, he made this fiberglass little babies, and he installed them on the tower, crawling up and down the tower. It was meant to be only temporary, and after 1 year it was dismantled, But what happens quite often, people say we want them back, and they are now a permanent part of the tower there in Prague. And you can also see the same babies as a bronze sculptures in one of the museums there in Prague. Okay, while in Prague, we came across Czech Cubism. And if you haven't seen Czech Cubism elements, go and have a look. It's just awesome. It didn't last long. It was only about 2 or 3 years as a design style, but it was just amazing. And looking at all this, I discovered passion for staircases. You can see that staircase there, that was in the Cubism house, and there's a few more photographs of staircases there, you'll see them. And going from Cubism, we discovered Art Nouveau in Prague. And this building you can see there, it's a municipal house. Do I get this right? Municipal house. Yeah. In Czech language, it's called Obecní dům. I can speak Czech a little bit. I can understand a lot of Czech, and so it's very similar. All the Slavic languages are pretty much similar. But this house contains, I think, 4 restaurants, 2 concert halls, and other things. It was built on the site of the previous building, which was demolished late in 19th century, and then this house was built there as an Art Nouveau building. There is a number of restaurants in there, and we had the chance to go to one of them, actually 2 of them, and the bar, and they all look pretty much like museums. You walk in there and you think, wow, where am I? And this is not so much typical Art Nouveau. While we were there, my partner, she's an artist, she's an art teacher as well, and we had a long discussion about, is it Art Nouveau or is it Art Deco? We had a few talks around over this, but it was absolutely amazing. This is the concert hall, and we had a chance actually to go there and listen to Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. It was beautiful. Okay, this is actually bar in the same building with the beautiful, I think we have to agree, it is Art Nouveau. It looks like Art Nouveau, and it's absolutely stunning. Okay, there is a little bit more of Art Nouveau there, but why do I have this photograph there of the red car? The reason is, for me, I have grown in communist country, in Poland, and that car is actually a East German built Fibro car. Okay? They've got a big problem with disposal of these cars because they can't recycle them. They're not metal bodies. And for me, it was quite interesting to see there East German built car in Prague with the Thai massage signs. Okay, it was quite interesting. And of course, we came across Marilyn Monroe in Prague. And then I took some photographs in the little town outside Prague in Karlovy Vary, where they have film festival once a year. It's absolutely beautiful. A little town, but a lot of color. There is a small river running across. You can see more staircases there. And puppets, the puppeteers, they're very popular in Czech in Prague. More stairs. I like this. And more stairs. And then we came across another artist, Alfons Mucha. Okay? They pronounce his name Mucha. And he is considered to be a creator, if I can say, of Art Nouveau. He himself didn't like to be considered as an Art Nouveau artist. He produced many paintings, illustrations, advertisements, postcards and designs. He moved to Paris in 1987. And yes, so when we look at this again, come on. Okay. In this you can see Alfons Mucha himself, portrait of his daughter. This is called Fall Season. In there you can see the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And when he went to enroll to the Academy of Arts, he was told, "You better find another job." And nobody knew that soon he will be the leading artist in France, doing designs like this, doing posters for theater and stuff like that. He designed this jewelry shop in Paris. It's absolutely beautiful example of Art Nouveau. He designed every single bit in there. Unfortunately, it wasn't fitted for the extension of the shop, and they dismantled the whole thing. But fortunately, the owner of the shop kept all this, and just recently it has been restored as a museum setting, as an installation, so it's still existing. You can see some sketches of Mucha's sketches that were as a part of the designing this jewelry shop. From Prague we went to Austria. And when you go to Austria, you probably think Schönbrunn Palace, Belvedere, all this. And I went there, we went to Schönbrunn Palace, and I stood there and I think, what's the fuss about? You know, it's not all this great as they say. You know, personal taste didn't make any impression on me. Okay, it's awesome, it's big, but that's what it is. But when you go to Austria, you can't forget Vienna Secession. And Vienna Secession, when you think about this, you think Gustav Klimt, all right? When you think Gustav Klimt, you cannot forget a Beethoven frieze in the Secession House. It's absolutely stunning. And that's what we enjoyed most in Vienna, finding out again Art Nouveau and all these styles, the more modern styles. And of course, when you are in Vienna and you like Gustav Klimt, you can't forget the kiss. Okay? So we had to take a selfie in front of Klimt's kiss. Okay? So that was good. And from there we thought, okay, so then we need to go and see a little bit more of what Habsburgs did to Vienna, which I totally despise, because I don't know if you know what happened. They moved into Vienna and they pretty much demolished everything that was there and rebuilt the whole lot in this spectacular style of power and dominance, you know, showing off, I am rich. Okay? I don't like that. And the other thing we found in Vienna was new facing old. And this building was actually near St. Stephen's Cathedral. And what I found really amazing is, I believe people who designed this house, they had in mind reflection of old in the new. and it's absolutely stunning. When you look at this little windows there, you don't have the mouse cursor there. These little windows there, they look like paintings with the reflection of the building behind. You know, it's just amazing. And the reflection of St. Stephen's Cathedral in these windows is just awesome. So that's what inspires me. And also what I find inspirational, it's butterflies. Okay? So we had the chance to see a butterfly farm or something like this. While in Vienna, you have to go to one of the Austrian pubs and drink beer and eat sauerkraut and eat black puddings and sausages, and we did it. We enjoyed it. And also we went to a museum of applied arts or design. I wasn't too impressed, but you know, I find quite interesting this installation of chairs behind the silk screen with the light behind. So that was quite good. And then, of course, the Schönbrunn Palace. Okay, to me, this big pathways of gravel reminds so much just a concrete street. You know, that I'm not impressed with this. Okay? Again, it's a personal thing. But what I found really interesting in Vienna was this fella, Hundertwasser. If you don't know Hundertwasser, you better look up and find more about him. He was born in 1928 and he grew up in Vienna. And just before the Second World War, they got in trouble because his mom happened to be Jewish. So they pretended to be Christians. He was actually baptized, and just to hide that they were Jewish. He was, in a way, he was an artist, he was designer, he was architect, he was man of all the trades. And we had a chance to go and see one of his design buildings and the museum. Hundertwasser didn't like straight lines, he didn't believe in straight line. To him everything was curved, and he really liked the idea of spirals. He believed that life actually turns around the spiral and we come back to the same place but in a different time slightly. Okay, so but still there, and that was a restaurant in Hundertwasser Museum. You can see that he liked mosaic tiles, and when I look at this, I can't imagine that he would actually would be able to draw it and give it to the builders and say, build this. He was in a way a little bit like Gaudi, who had to be there actually to supervise and tell them, no, don't cut this tile that way, it has to be a little bit different. So it's a passion. It's the life of passion. And okay, so we've got more of Hundertwasser there. This is the apartment of buildings. On the left, he would plant these trees and bushes on the balconies, on the roofs, everywhere. Funny, he never built a house from the scratch, from nothing. Most of his work was renovations. He would convert this old building, like there is another building in Vienna, the rubbish place where they used to burn the rubbish, and he rebuilt the whole thing, and it's amazing. That's the same building. There are people living there. It's a building of apartments, so tourists are not allowed to go inside. But you can see the facade of this house there. absolutely amazing. Okay, and then from there we went to Croatia, we went to Montenegro, and we also went to Bosnia and Herzegovina. You probably are aware about the war we had there, and you can see remainings of that war everywhere, especially the bullet holes on the walls. And we went to Dubrovnik. When you look at Dubrovnik, the beautiful terracotta tile roofs, they were all destroyed. They had to rebuild the whole lot. But we'll just quickly go through this. We absolutely enjoyed Croatia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is a lot of color, a lot of texture. Who watched Game of Thrones? Right? So you probably find a little bit of Game of Thrones in there, because you can take in Dubrovnik, you can take a tour of Game of Thrones. So I believe that part is where some parts were filmed. Dubrovnik is pretty much on the hill. Everywhere you go, you have to climb the stairs, and they drop you off at the gate to the town, and then you're on your own. You have to, if you've got big luggage, big suitcases, you have to carry it up all the steps, up and down, up and down. And they've got hundreds of cats. That's interesting. They have no mice there is no rats, but they've got cats everywhere. They're not wild cats, they're not feral cats. You can go and pet them, they come, and they're just everywhere there. Okay, that's a little bit more of Dubrovnik. This is the main street. Usually during daytime, I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, just to go for my daily walks with my camera. And about 10, 11 o'clock, the streets would start filling up. So this is probably about 6 o'clock in the morning, where there was nobody there. They would have a big 2 or 3 cruise ships in the harbor, and about 11 o'clock there was thousands and thousands of people charging through the streets. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I could see all the service people, delivery people, and that was interesting. I enjoyed this better. There's a little bit more of that. Beautiful water, clear water. The light is amazing. This is definitely setting of the Game of Thrones. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but Sandra did, and she told me it is part of the Game of Thrones, so it must be. This is the Dubrovnik wall. Takes 2 hours to walk that wall. That's part of the Dubrovnik wall. This is the harbor. And then we went to Montenegro, to Kotor. Kotor is absolutely stunning. It's called, the Montenegro is called Fjords of Balkans. And it's just beautiful. We climbed up to the top of the hill, 1,350 steps. And it took up and down, it took 3 hours. And that's what we've seen on the way there. It was just beautiful. And the texture and color of this old limestone bricks, it was just amazing. This looks like a little bit like a Machu Picchu, but it was beautiful. And then we got to the Bosnia and Herzegovina. This town is called Mostar. You can see that this bridge there, it's called an old bridge, or in language there, it's called Stari Most. Is it correct, Joanna? Yeah? Yeah. Stari Most. Yeah. It was destroyed, totally destroyed during the war. Some say there was about 20 bombs dropped on the bridge. It was totally destroyed and then rebuilt after war. Mostar is a mixture of Christian Orthodox, Catholics, and Muslim. And it's a very colorful, very busy place. And the texture there is just amazing. You know, there's walls. I don't know, you probably can't see even there, in this little wall there, you can see the bullet holes. But when we talk about the color, look at the color of these houses there. They were just beautiful. Yeah, that's a little bit more of Mostar. More of that. And from there, we got to Venezia. Okay? I couldn't, not to take this photograph. I found this very attractive. And when you look at this person, obviously she's enjoying shopping. In one hand, she's got a Louis Vuitton. The other one is Gucci. And she's there on holidays. When we got to Venice, we were sick of cathedrals, museums, and all this. And we said, no more ABC. You know what that is? Another bloody church. So when we got there and we stood at the St. Mark's Square and I saw the queue to get to St. Mark's Basilica, I said, I'm not going there. I said, I can probably see the virtual tour on the website somewhere there. I'm not going there. I'm not standing 4 hours in the sun just to get there. So we didn't go anywhere there, which wasn't too bad. I spent my time walking mornings around the streets there. You can't call them streets. They're not streets, really. I found this quite interesting. Couldn't stop myself taking that photograph because I can find the principles of design there. Direction, shape, and the color. So it's all there. And obviously, this man directed me to my hotel room. Lucky it wasn't my hotel room, but I absolutely enjoyed walking in the back little streets of Venice, finding these places with the texture and color, and without people. Okay? The only live person, or it's not person, I can't call it person, life there I found when I was walking one of the mornings was a seagull pulling a rat from the water and trying to chew it, and that was quite interesting. But there was nobody else. Of course, when you are in Venice, you have to take a gondola ride, and we did. And there is more gondolas there. Look at the sun on this building. That's about 6 o'clock in the morning again. Quite interesting to me as a designer and builder was how do they build in Venice? How do they renovate? How do they deliver bricks and gyprock? Okay? There is how do they deliver concrete? And I found that I came across a couple of these boats delivering gyprock, bricks, builders, and actually to get on our way back to get to the water taxi, we had to climb across with our suitcases across 3 of these boats to get to the water taxi. But you can see there is another one there, and that's how they transport all the goods to renovate. On this boat you can see a crane. Okay, so this is the only way actually to deliver cranes there. But probably the most amazing is the next one. And when you see a concrete delivered on the big boats like this, I think there is about 6 big concrete mixers on this boat. So that was interesting. And then we came across a little island, Burano. I don't know if you probably, I don't know, maybe you heard about Burano Island. I didn't. And when we discovered this island, it was like, wow, is this for real? Okay, why? Because the color in there is just stunning. They reckon they painted those houses in different colors, so the fishermen on the way back, in the fog that often is there, they can find the houses by the color. Okay, so look at the colors in there. I'll just go through this. Isn't this amazing? When we got there, I looked at this and I said, I can't believe it. Just look at the color. More of this. And okay, and we're getting now to the Architecture Biennale. What is Architecture Biennale? It's happening every 2 years, so it's not every year. This time it was the 16th, and it runs for 6 months, from the 26th of May till the 25th of November. The first Architecture Biennale was opened or started in 1980. Before then, architecture was included in Art Biennale or Theatre Biennale. So that photograph was taken through the window in one of the main pavilions, and the design of the window is done by, I'll tell you about him later, by Italian architect Carlo Scarpi. The Biennale is held in two main events, or also two main events. The first one is Giardini, and the other one is in Arsenali. Giardini is a parkland which before Napoleon Bonaparte, he decided to turn this into a park. It was swamps. So it's a huge big area where they created this main pavilion, and also there are small pavilions for the individual participants of Biennale from different countries. There is an Australian pavilion. I got some photographs. I wasn't too impressed with the installation of Australian pavilion, and I have to say I didn't include this in my presentation. But yeah, few of the pavilions in there were actually designed by quite known architects, and one of them was Carlo Scarpa, and he designed there two things. One of those was the courtyard he designed, and the other one was the Venezuelan pavilion. Okay, so he is not very well known, and you know, he was to be considered the most enigmatic of the architects and things like this. He was born 1906, died 1978. Yeah. Okay, so the next photograph is actually the Venezuelan pavilion. All these pavilions, they're quite small. Okay, they're not huge buildings. They're just small pavilions. That's another photograph of that courtyard. And I was pleased to find out that Alvar Aalto actually designed the Finnish pavilion there, which is quite small, and it's really, comparing to the other pavilions, looks rather sad. It looks a little bit like an like a garden shed. But yeah, so that's another photograph of that same pavilion. And then we discovered by accident, we discovered this. Come on. All right. That's a coffee place. It's a bar. It's a kind of a restaurant. We walked in there and we thought, what the hell is happening here? It was designed by German sculptors who his work is quite difficult to categorize because he does many different things. But he designed this coffee shop, bar, or whatever you want to call it, in 2009 for the Biennale, for the Art Biennale, and he actually won with this the main prize. And since then, it's there. Okay, so that's inside the restaurant. When you walk in, you go to the gate, and on the side of the gate, on the floor, on the side, on the walls, on the ceiling, you've got this black circles, right? Black spots. And in the middle of this, there is an opening, and as an opposite to the round shapes, everything inside is square or lines. Okay, you walk inside, and it's not only what you see around, but at the back they've got mirrors on the different angles, and those mirrors reflects all the crazy stuff inside there, and it's just wonderful. We love that, and I took few photographs of this, as you can see. Okay. And then the second place is the Arsenale, when they've got the exhibition. What is Arsenale? Arsenale was a shipbuilding yard, if you want to call this. At one point in history, there was employed 16,000 people worked there. Right. So how does it work with the Biennale? They've got 61 countries participating, and there was about 100 architects. They were divided to different places, and come on. So this is the way to the Arsenale. It's more of this. If I can just quickly get there. So this is more about the Biennale there. Let's go through this quickly. The theme of the brief for Biennale was free space, and free space also generosity of architecture and spirit. And I was thinking about what is it, how does it work, and when you think about generosity is what people give to the space, to the architecture, to the community, and it's not only money, it's the time, it's the culture, anything they give to the place. And the way people can often take architecture as their personal belonging, like people can take over places. And what happened, the pavilions were representing not so much architecture, it was based on how to interpret architecture and put in a reverse to a concept, a model, installation. And the Hungarian pavilion was based on what happened in Budapest in 2016 when they closed the bridge to the traffic, and suddenly people moved in. And they actually occupied the bridge. They brought in yoga mats, they brought picnics, and suddenly this bridge turned into a free space, into a public space. And the pavilion was pretty much nothing on the ground floor, but you had to climb up to the top, and from there you could see the whole space of the park there. And that's what the bridge looked like when young people, they were mostly the millennium people, they went onto the bridge and they pretty much took the possession of the bridge. The next pavilion there was the Luxembourg pavilion, and it was interesting to see that actually the public land in Luxembourg is only of 8%. 92% of land in Luxembourg is privately owned. And what's happening there, architects are trying to think, how can architecture provide a spatial space for people where there is so much little space. So the idea was to raise buildings above the ground. And funny thing, none of the buildings that you could see there was ever built. There are models of buildings which are elevated above the ground, and people can take possession of the space underneath. One of the buildings, the one there, it's actually designed by Le Corbusier. It was never built. None of these buildings was ever built. That's more about the Luxembourg, and that's what's happening there under those buildings. You know, people just go there and live their own life. One of the most interesting pavilions there was the German pavilion, and it was based on the Berlin Wall. For 28 years, Germans were divided by this wall. And funny to say, it's exactly 28 years after that wall was pulled down. And what they looked at is at how that space between these walls, this free space, how is it going to be converted now? What's happening there in terms of building and things like this? And they were looking at different elements of that, but also looking at how we actually create walls. And there was a video presentation of walls, which people who live with the walls. And you probably know that Mr. Trump is building a big wall between America and Mexico. There is a wall between Israel and Palestine. There is a wall in Cyprus. There is a wall in North and South Korea. There is Northern Ireland wall. And on that presentation, they had people there on the screens talking about their lives with the walls. So that was quite interesting. Argentina had quite amazing presentation installation. You walk in there and there was like a big tunnel, and in there you could put your head inside, you know, this little black squares there, you put your head inside, and inside there was all mirrors, and it reflects the space, that the wasteland of that space. And they were looking at how architecture is actually working with that open space. So that was more of this. The Chile pavilion, Chilean, was actually looking at how a stadium was could become different public space. I don't know if you remember, in 1979, there was about 37,000 people in the stadium, and they all got land rights. Look, I might finish here.
We're heading back to class.
Yeah, okay. I think I a little bit underestimated the time, but yeah. All right? Okay.